Wayne T. Carr, thank you for coming and having a chat with me on my channel this time.
You bet. Thank you for having me,
I'm
lady.
really happy to have you here. I was doing a bit of research into you, and it was a lot of theater, obviously, because not the longest IMDb, but a lot of theater work. So you actually did To Kill a Mockingbird way back.
Holy moly, look at you. I knew you were going to do this. I did. Way back in the day, I did To Kill a Mockingbird. And not many people know that story, but the way it happened, and I kind of like touched on it. I think it was in Lightcast, kind of how I got, I don't know, maybe I didn't. But I was playing football in high school my senior year, and a couple of the theater students came out to the football field and said, Wayne, we need you to audition for To Kill a Mockingbird. So here's the thing. In my school, theater wasn't necessarily the coolest thing, but I wasn't shy to be involved in whatever I wanted to be involved in. So they decided if anyone's going to help us out and be in this show, Wayne will do it. These two young ladies came to the football field, said, Wayne, would you help us out? We're doing To Kill a Mockingbird. Bluntly, they said, we need Black people. So, and they needed Black guys specifically. And I auditioned. I went right into the theater, auditioned with the script in hand. I was nervous as anything, sweating from my palms. And of course, they gave me the role because I was the only one available.
Mm. So if you don't mind my asking, was your high school not very diverse?
My high school was extremely diverse. It just wasn't cool to do theater. And I guess the guys, it wasn't a lot of guys. It wasn't a lot of guys, stepping in to do theater. So, but it was a very diverse school.
Okay. Because I wasn't sure if it was one of those situations of like, there's a handful of Black people at your school, and that's why they're like even more desperate.
No, we had a population of Native, Indigenous people. We had Hispanic. We had, like from all over, like Spain, Mexico, you name it. We had Asian population, and nobody did theater. Nobody liked to do theater. So That's how I got started.
Because you were raised in DC, right?
Yes, I was raised in DC, the Washington metropolitan area. We call it the DMV. So I was raised in DC, and I went to high school in Rockville, Maryland.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because when I was looking into you and it said, oh yeah, he was raised in DC, and I'm going, maybe I'll just skip asking him about DC becoming a state. Like maybe that's not what we're going to get into the talking point.
We can get into that. DC should definitely be a state. It makes complete sense.
Yeah. Well, the whole state of politics nowadays is a complete mess, which actually is a good segue into, I watched a web series that you did.
No, it's not a mess though.
What?
That eye work you got going on.
Oh, thank you.
Goodness.
Well, I had to incorporate green somehow, and this is usually one of the only ways that I can incorporate green without it looking completely wretched on my skin. But yeah, so this web series you did called Stupid Cupid, and you had the funniest line in that entire series, and it said, I can't go back into politics. Constitutional law doesn't even exist anymore.
Right? Yeah.
Which I was like, when did they make this? Did this, because I think it came out this year, right?
Yeah, it came out this year. We shot it the fall of, it was going into 2020. So yeah, it was fall of, wow, that's so crazy. 2019, time just flew, man. That's so crazy.
Yeah. Because I was watching, the Capitol situation that happened earlier this year. So then I'm watching this web series, and it's a joke and it's funny, but you're also kind of like, oh God, but he's right.
So weird. So weird.
Do you want to talk a bit about that web series though? Getting into it, making it.
That web series. So yeah, we shot it in New York, and it was a lot of fun. We had a good time. They're looking for streaming services for that show. So they're pursuing to kind of like push it out there into the film Film festivals. I'm assuming film festivals are happening now. They're going to, right? I don't know. I have no idea. But so they're marketing that right now. Of course, literally, as soon as they were kind of like wrapping everything, COVID hit, and it's been a big pause on everything. And so that's just starting to like come out.
Mm. Yeah, it was interesting because I don't think I've watched a lot of web series, but I could definitely get the sense from watching it that it was very undiluted storytelling, where it's not really going through a committee. It's just kind of a handful of people who have something they want to say, and they come together to bring that to life. Because I felt like it was so much more clear and straightforward with what it was talking about, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They're actual stories. They're real life stories of people in their dating situations or blind date situations.
Yeah. I feel like the takeaway of the web series, I mean, I don't know if people don't want me to spoil things and they would rather just go watch it themselves, which I would encourage people to do. But I feel like, you know, the TLDR is that the web series is about how dating apps are very shallow, and most people are probably at least a little bit bisexual. Like, that was my takeaway from the show.
You know, that's an argument that many people have. And I think that's a good thing to talk about with some people. And, you know, some people are going to be completely against that notion, you know, and fight against it. But I think that makes for good television.
Yeah. It was really, you know, I wasn't sure how, because I'm so unused to watching a series where episodes are that short. You know, typically an episode is at least 20, like 21, 22 minutes long, you know? And it was only, what, a couple, I think the longest episode was 11 minutes. Some of them were 3 to 5 minutes long. But I was like, no, I mean, but it's paced very well. You know, there's an arc in each episode and then an arc across the whole season. So yeah, I enjoyed it, you know, pleasant surprise.
Yeah, it gets to the point, you know.
So another thing I found out was that a lot of theater, obviously, but there were some interesting stories that you had about kind of getting into theater as an actor, but also just as a fan of theater. You saw Vanessa Redgrave do theater?
I did.
Tell me about that. I geeked out as soon as you said that, because when I was little, I would watch Camelot along with a lot of other musicals, but I would watch it over and over again. So I was just geeking out, like, wow, trying to imagine doing watching her do theater.
Yeah, it's how I got started in Shakespeare. I'll never forget it, because I was in London and I didn't necessarily like Shakespeare at the time. And I went there because I wanted to be a well-rounded theater actor. I went to the Globe, the Globe there, and saw The Tempest. And she was Prospero, which is a male role, the father figure in the play. And I loved it because she added a little more heart to the role. I just felt it a lot more. And I stood up the whole time in the groundling area for this 3-hour production, and I was mesmerized. I didn't go to the bathroom one time. I just stood there and I watched this performance, and she was absolutely unbelievable. The whole production was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so you said you saw The Tempest at the Globe?
Yeah.
I saw The Tempest at the Globe too, but it wasn't Vanessa Redgrave. It was Roger Allam doing that part. So
right on.
Nice parallels. Yeah, because London has so much theater, you know, and I feel like it seems like there's just a greater appreciation for theater and kind of that being a pillar of the arts, a pillar of acting, that I feel like you don't really get that as much in the States, probably because the States, it's so large that, you know, unless you live somewhere like New York or, you know, a big city, you don't necessarily have as much access to it, which I think is unfortunate. But
that's the thing. You know, if you live in a city that is as condensed as, you know, London or New York, theater is that you can't ignore it. It's a part of your culture because you're in the middle of it. DC has a theater community. Chicago has a nice theater community. You're just a part of it. There's a nice theater community where I live here in LA, but it's overpowered by the cinema and how grand the cinema is. It employs so many people, and so film and television is the dominant force here.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about the current predicament of the theater industry? Because, with everything being shut down over the last year, I know that was a really big discussion among a lot of actors. I mean, the film industry obviously struggled too, but I just think it's a whole other thing for theater where you physically cannot go do the thing. It's not like you just put everything on pause. And also, I think on average, the paycheck is different. So the lack of work poses a bigger problem for theater actors.
Yeah, unfortunately, the people who work in the theater community, they're not paid as much as film and television. And so when this thing hit, it's not like all of my theater friends have, an emergency fund that will last them a year, so it's tough. And a lot of my friends who are in the theater world, and they're strictly in the theater world, they moved on to other things because they had to. So I'm curious what theater is going to look like on the other end of this. But yeah, a lot of people went to do other things.
Mm-hmm. Because I know you do some teaching as well. So was that something that you were doing more so from a place of necessity, or is that something that you were already doing because you're passionate about it? Like, talk a bit about that.
I'm passionate about teaching. I mean, like it's teaching is kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of everything, like whatever you're passionate about. If you're passionate about English, if you're passionate about a language, if you're passionate about building things, and then you can do that and teach people to do it and help them along the way, watch them succeed in it, then you get like the best of all the worlds. I get to be around people who are doing what I love to do. I love actors. I love storytellers. It is a passion of mine. And so to be able to help these young students along the way is extremely satisfying. And watching them succeed in certain areas, in certain ways. And most of the people that I teach, at least here in LA, everybody wants to do film and television. So, and I've been here for 5 years. So I'm kind of learning as I'm teaching them the theater element of things. I'm learning what they're doing when it comes to film and television right along with them. So.
So do you have those same ambitions? I mean, what is your attitude towards the many different mediums of acting? Because obviously you've done a lot of theater, and I don't know if that was because you've been auditioning for a lot of film and TV stuff and just not gotten things, or if you just weren't pursuing it as heavily, or.
Yeah, no, I went to New York right out of school, and it was all theater for me. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. And I had some mentors come up to me and say, "Hey, Wayne, so check this out. You're not going to make any money in the theater, so maybe you should do some film and television." And I thought to myself, yeah, I don't care about money like that. I just don't. And as I've gotten older, of course, I realized like, yeah, money is important and we need it. But when I push everything aside, I love what I love, and I love telling stories, and I love taking people on a journey, and I love it in all forms of art. Painting, music, television, film. I mean, I go on a journey. I go to a museum. I go to the movie theater to be kind of like taken away. You know what I mean? The theater, of course, but I jumped into theater because that's how I discovered the acting thing. And then once I started, I just kept getting work, and I bounced around the country doing that and fell in love with the life of traveling and going to new cities like Chicago or Seattle and spending a chunk of time there and getting to know the local area and kind of like finding my restaurant and finding my group of friends there until I moved to the next job. And then once I got to the West Coast and kind of fell in love with the sun, I said, I want to live there. And people said, well, Wayne, there's not much theater there. And I was like, I can do theater from anywhere. I can like go and I can travel and gig or whatever, wherever I want to go. And so when I got here in LA, 5 years ago, I still was doing theater, but my agents, of course, were like, so there's no money in that. So film and television. And I thought, why not? So I started taking classes and continue to work on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I wasn't sure if it was the material itself that you were preferring in theater or if it was the style of acting, because obviously acting in theater is a lot more expressive than toning all of that down for a camera. So
yeah, it's a different frequency, and that's something that I talk to myself about, my students about, my friends about who are in the film and television world, my friends who are in the theater world. There's a different frequency. I'm naturally an animated person, as you can see. I'm using my hands and everything, and that's cool. And then for film and television, of course, you got to take that frequency and bring it way down and intensify and laser focus everything. Because if you don't do that, I mean, like people are watching this interview and they may go, all right, he's a little animated, he's a little crazy, but I know how to bring it down, right? And it's just there's a different energy or focus to it, but it's still telling the truth. It's still storytelling. So I wasn't opposed to doing film and television. I just naturally was a bigger person, and I love human interaction.
mm-hmm.
I love being in front of people, listening to them laugh. I think it's a cool thing to go into a movie theater, and especially if you're on the screen and watch a show, a movie that you're a part of, and then hear people laugh at something you say. Oh, it's so cool. It's so dope. But there's nothing like doing the thing in the moment and having people react in the moment to the thing, whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's interesting to hear you say that, because I feel like so many actors who are more so doing film and TV, they hate watching themselves, and they don't want to, like, some people will go for, a large portion of their careers never having seen anything that they're in, which
it's true.
I don't know how I would. I mean, I've never been on a TV show or, in a big film, so I don't know from firsthand experience, but I feel like that would be so exciting. Like, wouldn't you want to see it at least the first time? Maybe if you do it enough, you get sick of it, but or if it was like a terrible experience and you hate the way that the final edit came out, then fair enough. But I don't know. I would want to watch it. Maybe I'm just desensitized to it because I'm on YouTube, so I'm so used to having to like film myself and then edit it, and it's awful for the first few years of you doing it, and then you just kind of yeah.
You though, you know what I mean? Like, you're on YouTube, you're seeing your face, and you might go, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have put the green eyeshadow over here or whatever, because it just makes my skin whatever. On film, these actors are exposing their soul, right? And whether it's them being vulnerable because there's something emotional going on and they have to allow themselves to share that, or whatever the emotion may be, they're putting it out there. And a lot of the times, especially if they're doing their job really well, they look at themselves and they don't recognize themselves, and it's weird to look at. Playing a character and it's not you, and you see yourself with a different kind of energy, and your eyes, are full of tears, and your face is making whatever it's doing because you're pissed off. And then you see it with everybody else, and you're kind of like, well, that's not me. Which a lot of time, and this is, I'm guilty of this as well. If I see you in a role, you're going to be that role. If I had the opportunity to actually be in Justice League and do the thing, I'm sure when some fan at a Comic-Con saw me, they're not going to say, "Hey, Wayne." They're going to say, "Hey, Green Lantern." You become that thing. And so to sit in a movie theater and watch this person who's not you, this is the person you're playing. It's a different feeling.
Yeah. Well, because I did a couple musicals when I was little, but that was live, so I don't have the experience of seeing myself doing the thing that I was doing.
What musicals did you do?
I was just like a non-named character in the background of Once Upon a Mattress, and then I was also Lucy in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Okay.
You know, real sassy with a little blue dress. So I was acting because I don't wear dresses. So
But sassy, I can see that. I
yeah.
can see that part. Yeah.
Well, because I think it was because when I was that age, I had never auditioned for stuff. So the first time I sucked at my audition, which is why I got a non-speaking role, even though I was fully capable of being a lead. But then the second time I was like, oh, I understand how this works now. So I went in and I changed like how I did it because I understood who was running the auditions and what they wanted to see. And then I got a lead and I was like, yeah. So it was fun though.
Mastered it.
From the vague memories that I have of it, considering how long ago that was. So with you having done so much Shakespeare, one thing I was curious to get your opinion on was, so Shakespeare, the works of Shakespeare, they're done over and over and over again in theater and also on screen, whether in a more kind of pure adaptation or sort of a reimagining of those stories. And everybody just sort of accepts that that's a thing that happens. But then we also have this recent phenomenon of Hollywood is always remaking things and doing sequels to things. And a lot of people are very antagonistic towards that. So do you feel like there's a difference between the two and like one is okay and the other isn't? Or, like as someone who's done so much Shakespeare, because I was thinking about it because I know I was going to talk to you and then it just kind of, my mind started churning and I was going, why does everyone get so mad that they keep remaking stuff? But it's like, how many times have we seen like, Shakespeare redone or Pride and Prejudice redone, and everybody gets like, everybody just goes, oh yeah, I'm gonna go watch that. You never hear someone like, oh, they're doing another Emma. Like we already saw Emma, in the 90s. Why do we need another Emma? So, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a little different when it comes to like theater, right? Mm-hmm. Like live theater. When it comes to filming certain things, I kind of get it. It's just a little bit of a different energy, And so I am okay with people evolving things, like changing things up, giving us a different perspective of things. And that's what I think happens with Shakespeare. It's like, or at least for the most part, that there's a different take on it when people are filming it. When you're remaking something that has a movie that was done 20 years ago and you don't do too much to it and it's still kind of like the same thing, I'm with that crowd. I'm like, why? Give me something different. I don't want to. I can watch that literally again. I can put it on my TV and watch the original of that. If you don't do something different with it, then what am I watching it for? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm cool with remakes if you do something different to it. To me, if you do a remake and spice it up, I'm all for it. That's great.
Yeah, it's sort of like a Steven Spielberg doing a new West Side Story. I mean, to be fair, it's been like how many decades since the first one? And also, this time he's doing it with actual Latin actors and not white actors painted in brown makeup. I was going to use a stronger word, but I was like, let me not. I caught myself. I was like,
yourself on your own channel. Come on now.
Well, I was just like, no, that's not the right word that I'm looking for. But, I just think that sometimes people are so hostile. It's like, okay, well, just because maybe the people signing off on the projects, like maybe those people are just going, oh, I think I can make money from this. But that's their job. I don't like, it's not fair to take it out on the creatives that are like, okay, well, if this is the job, I can make something creative out of this. And I think those people sometimes don't get the credit that they deserve when they're doing those remakes sometimes, but it depends on the project. Like, I'm not talking about like the Psycho film, what is it? Shot for shot remake. I'm not talking about that, but
yeah, no, shot for shot. That's where it's like, come on now, really? do something different, change it
Yeah.
up.
It's like, oh, but it's in color. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
And what? Like,
That doesn't count.
like that's not that interesting of a change. Like, what difference does that make? But anyway, so another thing I wanted to ask you about was, so you're doing, it's Macbeth, right? The new feature film adaptation.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can talk about it, because I don't know how your NDAs work and whatever, but I was looking on IMDb and it said murderer number 3. Does it say that like on your script, like on the...
Oh yeah, murderer number 3. That is the role. That Shakespeare does that. This is murderer number 1. This is murderer number 2, and this is murderer number 3. Yeah, doesn't even give him a name. It's just like, that's the murderer. Okay, that's which number 1, which number 2, which number 3. Yeah.
So I don't know how much you can talk about that, if you'd like to talk about it, but you're also a Shakespeare consultant, which I think is a fascinating job title. And if you're allowed to say, I would love for you to talk a bit about what that job even is.
Yeah. So the basic story with that, because it was a crazy, crazy story, the way this thing happened. So I'm here auditioning for things, and my agent sends me this audition for one of the lead roles in Macbeth. And I was like, this is amazing. I've been doing Shakespeare my entire freaking career. Like, why don't I gotta go out for this. I get this audition and I'm like, this is mine. I'm gonna kill this. And I go in and I kill it. I knocked it out of the park. I never say that about my auditions. I felt so secure with it. And then the next thing I know, I'm in New York shooting Stupid Cupid, and I heard nothing from them. And then they call me again they call my agent and they say, could you have him audition for this part? The next part was a little bit a lesser part, but still a major part in the movie. I was like, gladly, I will gladly do that part. Done. So I record a self-tape in New York, send it to the producers and the casting people, and they were like, awesome, great. And I didn't hear anything. And I thought, okay, this is done. I get back to LA and I'm just kind of like doing my other auditions and it's cool. I get another call from my agent. They want you to come in for an audition for this part, the part that I auditioned for, self-tape. And I was like, great. And I got to read opposite Frances McDormand. I don't know why she decided to do that, but she read with everybody who was called back. And I was like, that was super awesome of her. But it was like a highlight in my freaking career. Of course it was, to be able to read with her. So I read Shakespeare opposite one of my heroes in this business. And then I was done and I walked away and I was like, okay, I don't care whether I get this movie or not. I got to read with Frances McDormand. I'm done. Bye. And I left. Didn't hear anything for a month. And then my agents called me a month later and they say, Frances wants to talk to you. And I was like, wait, what? Do I have the part? This is great. No, you don't have the part. I was like, wait, what? You don't have the part, but she wants to talk to you. We don't know what this is about. So I go in the next day. I walk into Frances' office. Frances McDormand comes up and just gives me a hug. She just gives me a hug and squeezes me. I'm like, oh my gosh, hey, how's it going? And we sit down and we talk a little bit, and nothing about a part, nothing about anything, just talking about theater and, Shakespeare and everything. And then finally, maybe like 15 minutes later, she says, okay, so here's the deal. We're going into rehearsals for Macbeth, and we know you've done a lot of Shakespeare, and we would love for you to help us in the process, because there are a lot of things that have to happen. Joel Coen, the director, can only do but so much. He has to do all of these things. So while we're doing the rehearsals, we would love for your assistance. And I said, okay, well, what do you need? And she couldn't tell me. She didn't have like an answer for it. So I basically did a little bit of everything. I read for every role with different actors when they were working on their lines. I literally read with the entire cast. I filled in when we did a reading for all of the producers and everything. I filled in for people who weren't able to fly over from London to be in the cast. Yeah, I organized rehearsals during the time. I ran lines with people, and then maybe a week into kind of like working, my agent says they want you to be in the movie. They just don't know what part yet because they're still casting this part, this part, this part. And I was like, okay. And then finally it came to me that I'm murderer number 3. And I was like, okay, murderer number 3. Right. What does murderer number 3 do? And so, yeah, I got to be in the movie, and I got to be a consultant, which basically meant people came up to me and asked me questions about the play. And I had a team with me also to help me with that. So it was awesome.
That is such a trippy story, because arguably you got more out of that experience than you might have if it was just like you playing a regular part, because you're interacting so much more with everyone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like I was there the whole time from day one, not even day one, from rehearsals to the last day of shooting. I was on set every day. I got the most for sure. It was my master class of film and television. It was great. And I got to watch Joel Coen work every day right next to him and listen to Frances McDormand put on her producer hat and then her acting hat and listen to what she had to say from both angles, and then watch her do her masterful acting, and then watch Denzel do his masterful acting. And I got to talk to them all along the way and help them all along the way. And then it came my time to say my 3 lines in the movie. And I remember sitting or getting ready, putting on my costume and everything. And everyone on set was super excited. They were like, Wayne's going to do his scene today. I was like, hey, guys, I got 3 lines. I got 3 lines. It's not that big of a deal. But because I was the Shakespeare guy, people were super excited.
That sounds like a really lovely, positive experience, which is refreshing. Yeah. Considering how many more people have started to share their horror stories about the industry over the last, like, I don't know how many years. Like, even, I mean, Me Too was definitely like like the dam breaking. But, you know, even before that, I feel like it's been picking up momentum. So it's just nice to hear you have just like a genuinely lovely experience of being on a big film set.
Yeah, I cannot, I was spoiled for sure. I was definitely spoiled. The negative when it came to shooting, of course, was in the middle of it. We stopped for 3 months or however long it was because of COVID. That was the negative. Other than that, I had a great time the entire time. And during that, I was actually on the set of Macbeth. And when I was talking to not Joel, but Zach about Justice League, thinking, this is crazy. This is crazy. I am on this lot working with Denzel and Francis, and I'm talking with Zack Snyder. What in the world is going on? And that was my summer last year. And then I got to go shoot that scene right after a long day of working on the set of Macbeth. And I went to his, driveway, did that thing. And yeah. And now even though he called me maybe it was like 3 weeks later after he showed the studio and they said, yeah, you can't do that. And he called me, he was very, very upset, which I felt, honored by. And he said, I can't do it. I'm so sorry. And he was so pissed off. And he was like, I want to quit. And I was thinking, like, he's not, you can't do that. The fans will kill you. Like, you have to let this go. And ultimately, when I knew that I was out of the film, I thought, oh, this is a sucky situation. But Zach said to me, I will work with you again. And I was like, dope. That's awesome. And then I left with, like, I got to go to Zach's house and watch the Lakers play on his big old movie screen and use his bathroom that had pictures of Watchmen, and like the Rorschach mask was right in front of you. And you're like, it's just like it was super dope. I was like, I can't beat that. And so even though I wasn't in the movie, I had a positive experience like shooting with him. And then he drops, this concept art and photos and stuff, and has been on my side the entire time. And all of the fans have been 99.9% positive the whole time as well. So it's a win-win. It was a good year of working for me.
Yeah, well, it seems like it's just everything lined up in a way where you're the right person to go through this type of experience because you're somebody that's valuing kind of the deeper meaning of these experiences as opposed to just the more predictable kind of ambitious thing that I think maybe not to be judgmental to actors, because like there's a lot of actors, not everyone is the same, but the people who are very like upset if their scene gets cut, where they're like, like I was supposed to be in this and now I'm not in it, but you're more so valuing like, oh, I didn't get the lead, but I got to be on set every day, or like, well, I wasn't in the movie, but I got to make a new acquaintance with a really awesome director. So
yeah, we all have our focus, right? Our ultimate goal, our desire, and I want to be of assistance in everything that I do. I want to help, which is why I'm a teacher. Like I want to, help the younger artists find their way and do what they want to do. And so if I can be of service on a project, great. If I'm not of service, then I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be a hindrance. I don't want to be a bother to anyone ever. If I can add to the team, if I can add to a product, then that's what I want to do. And so it was awesome to be able to have that happen in Hollywood for me last year, and to fit my desired outcome, my goal, what I want to do in life. And so it completely worked out in my behalf. But everybody has, I have students who are like, yeah, I'm in this business because I want to make money. I want to be rich. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. Go for what you want. And there are people who that's their desire. Great. A lot of those people I'm fans of. I'm going to watch their movie. They're doing it for money. They don't care about this or that or whatever. They're doing it for money. That's okay. Entertain me. Take me on a journey. I am okay with that. I love people like Frances McDormand, because Frances McDormand will go, yeah, I'm not going to get into a $5,000 ball gown to walk down the red carpet for you. I'm going to wear what I wear, and I'm going to be me. And that's what I love the most about her, past even her art, her mastery in the art form. She's just herself. The person that you see on television, the person you see in interviews, that's who she is in person. That's who she is going out. That's who she is on television. Like she's just herself. And I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you're mentioning those award shows, because that was something that I kind of started to learn recently just from meeting people who have varying degrees of familiarity with the industry. And then they're telling me things and they're saying, well, yeah, like those big award shows, a lot of people look at them like, oh, they're very pretentious. They're very self-congratulatory. But actually, the reason why they're so important for the industry is because that's where people network with each other. And that's how you're trying to like get your jobs and get, find the people that you're going to work with on your next thing, which I don't think it's necessarily an awful thing. Cause I think if you want to work with people that you're going to creatively vibe with, I'm all for anything that involves people finding the right people to work with where it's not going to be a hostile work environment. Cause anytime I hear that it was hell to make a movie, I'm like, well, then now I don't want to support that. Like, don't be awful to people on set. Like, It's fun. You're making a movie. Like, be happy, smile.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. But at the same time, before people started stepping up and being brave enough to open their mouth and say, hey, I was done wrong over here. This person mistreated me in this way that was disrespectful. This person tried to take advantage of my body. Once people started to be brave enough to like come up against these powerhouses, these studios, these individuals and say, here's what's happening to me. And other people followed suit. And other people started recording on the set and going, look at this person acting up and going all crazy and being all mean to people or whatever. Once people start seeing that and having a response to it, and you go, oh, that's not cool, or, oh, I'm sorry that happened. This has been going on forever. It's been a problem from day one. And people just kind of go, that's just how it is. And we enjoy the end product. And it is what it is. Now that we're able to see that, oh, that person was a jerk, it affects the ticket sales because we don't want to support that. And I think that's awesome. It'll kind of like correct the energy that is happening in the workplace for people, make it a little more just and just more enjoyable to be around and on set. It sucks for us, the fans, when we see that there are people who just disrespect people because of their position, their power, or their stardom. And we don't want to be around people like that. So why should those people who we love making the movies and the films that we love, why should they deal with that? So
yeah,
be
absolutely.
nice. Be nice.
I mean, it, like, honestly, you don't have to get along with everyone, but there's just certain lines that there's never a need to cross them, you know? And it's weird getting older and like moving from being a child to an adult and learning about what the industry is really like. And then you're like, oh, that's what the Wizard of Oz is about. I'm now seeing the man behind the curtain.
Oh yeah.
Everything was a lie. Well, not everything, but you know.
Yeah. I remember somebody told me, I think I was pretty young when somebody came up to me and they're like, what do you want to do? And I think at the time I said something like, I want to be on television. I think I was probably like 12 years old. And the person I was talking to was a little older and was working, I think, in Hollywood. I think she was like a VJ or something like that on like MTV. Anyway, and she said, just be careful about idolizing certain people. Be careful and be careful about wanting to meet the people that you idolize. And basically what she was telling me was like, it appears to be one thing, but when you actually meet those people, you might experience something a little different. And that's definitely the case.
Well, hopefully you're so, new to doing more of these film and TV gigs. Hopefully you don't have too many horror stories accumulated, but even if you do, I won't ask you to share them because it's really none of my business.
When they happen, I will gladly share it with you and everybody. I'm cool with sharing whatever, but I've been very fortunate. I've had horror stories in the theater world. Yeah. I mean, it happens all over the map. I don't care what your industry is or what you're doing. There are people who just suck. We're not cool people and they're upset with their life or whatever it is that they're dealing with. And they take it out on you and it sucks.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate thus far in the workplace here in LA. I'm lucky that way, but I'm sure something will come up and I will handle it the way I handle it and try to take the positive from it. And then I'll come on your show and go, check this out, Lady Genevieve. Yeah, this person did this thing. And I was like, that ain't right. So we'll have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I know that the theater industry is having its own reckoning right now because of that big producer that's, I don't know if I should say getting ousted, because it's one of those things of like, well, when news breaks, people usually at the bare minimum, they get a timeout, but you always have to wait longer to see if they're actually fully removed. Because I know that I won't get into the specifics because I don't want to drag you into the mess because it's not your mess. But there's always something going on Twitter because, when announcements happen for different things, and there's something happening on Twitter recently of like a project got announced and people are like, why is so-and-so still involved in this when like we've already had this conversation? Why are they still involved? So, but hopefully at least for this, I was reading the article about this Broadway producer. I'm going, how did this person just keep doing this for, I mean, I don't work in theater, so I didn't know anything about it. But
well, theater, film, we know stories now. Like we know stories, and we know what certain people have dealt with, and some of the stories that are coming out happened 30 freaking years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like it's been happening for a really, really long time. And so when somebody steps up and they say something, and then you realize that thousands of people just kind of like let it happen. They just let it go. They just went, oh, that's how it is. And that's what's happening. And so a lot of people might be shocked. And I think this is what this person who was telling me, be careful about idolizing certain people and wanting to meet certain people, is that the industry shows us one thing. We see what they want us to see, right? What happens behind the scenes has been going on for a long time. So there are tons of people who are working in the industry right now who are used to the old ways. And there are certain people in the industry who are trying to change those old ways and say, no, we're not taking that anymore. You have to change. You have to evolve. Don't be an ass to me. I deserve a little more respect than that. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that will become part of the culture. And 30 years down the road, you won't have other people saying the exact same thing 30 years down the road. This person did this to me in 2021 and it sucked.
Yeah. Well, it's like you hope that things will change, and it feels like some things do change, but also, you know, there are certain stories that you hear people coming out about now, and not getting into specifics of who said what about whom, but then, you know, you go back to whatever, like 100 years ago in Hollywood, and you find out, oh, Judy Garland was subjected to this, or whomever, or Clark Gable did this to his co-star, and you're like, so nothing has even changed then? Is that what that's the takeaway from this, you know, where you get a little, you feel like, you know, you're just repeating the same cycle over and over again. It's like, what is it going to take to really change it? I don't know, maybe social media and just the way people have the instant ability to just go online and say something if they want to. Maybe that is an ingredient that will potentially shift the tides. But I don't know. I can't.
Well, I think it's helping. I think it's definitely helping, because you have a platform now that if you have an opinion about anything, you can say it and reach whoever comes across your channel. You are a news source. I think I saw Denzel Washington say this on an interview at one point. He said, what an incredible responsibility you have to tell the news, to tell the story. Instead of being the one who breaks the news first and gets to the thing. Is it true? Is it real? Is it helping anyone, informing anyone? That's a responsibility. And you can open your mouth and say some things, and there are people who follow your channel and listen to what you have to say because they respect your voice, which they should. But what comes out of your mouth and what you say can affect things. You, as an individual, can affect things now. That wasn't the case a little while ago, you know?
Yeah. And I do think that it's important because I think there's a longstanding history of people in positions of power in the show, in entertainment, using kind of, they're sort of fostering this relationship with the news. When I say news, I more so mean like tabloids, you know, where they're like, oh yeah, these two are dating. Don't write that story exposing our 1940s movie star as actually being gay because it's a super homophobic era. You know, like they kind of have that relationship going. And I think the increasingly democratized platform of just the internet is really changing things where just kind of anybody can, go on the internet and say something like, but again, you make a totally valid point though, where it's like, okay, but also anybody can go online and say anything. Like you could just say whatever nonsense and it doesn't mean that it's true or that it's good or that it's useful or helpful. So,
yeah. But, you know, as we've seen, you know, in recent years, if the truth is out there and enough people who have or use the platform like you're using say, hey, this is wrong. And then not only you, but 100 other people who use this platform say the exact same thing, even though mainstream media is showing us one thing, or studio or whatever, the politicians or whatever are trying to cover something up or say, look over here, look over here. There's a big society who's saying, no, we're not letting this go. We're going to point this out to you. This is real. We're not allowing it. We disrespect that. That's messed up. There's power in that. There's power in the numbers, right? So you can say whatever you want to say, but when you're backed up by other people who are using the same platform as you're using, there's some significance. There's some validity in that. There's power in that. It's like, oh, okay, you're not the only one. So all of your followers are listening to you and going, yeah, I also heard this person say that same thing. Wait a minute. You know what I mean? And then,
yeah. Well, because I mean, it was sort of like I think it's just always the scariest thing to be the first person to speak out about something. Like, that's why I respect your friend Ray Fisher so much for everything that he's done to come forward to, you know, tell the truth about things that he's had to deal with, you know, and it's always scary to be the first person to speak up about something that's wrong. But we saw what, I mean, I won't ask you to, we don't have to get into a long conversation about everything that Ray has said, but, you know, the TLDR of it being that, you know, so he's speaking out about like one person, let's say, and then because he said what, you know, well, this is what I had to deal with. And then all these other people from like this person's entire career started coming out. You know, it might have taken a while for them to feel like they could, but, you know, it's a tricky situation. Can I actually ask you about how did you meet? Well, I know you did theater together, but what's the story of you meeting Ray Fisher the first time, becoming friends?
It's simple. I think Ray was coming. We were at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, Oregon, beautiful Southern Oregon, and he came late to the rehearsals. We had been rehearsing for like 3 days. He was doing something in New Jersey or something. I don't remember, but I just remember him walking in the room. One, I was just like, another Black guy, awesome. But you know, and Ashland's pretty diverse as far as like the company is concerned. The theater company, there's diversity there, which is why I love the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. But he walks in, I was like, another Black guy. Then he opened his mouth, and I was like, Jesus. Like, he just had this booming voice. And I was like, all right, young man, nice. That was great. And he came down, he sat down, he's like, hey, my name's Ray Fisher. I'm playing this role. And I was like, he's my brother. So we played brothers in a show. And that kind of just like tied us together in that realm. And then we became brothers just in life and just like, you know, enjoyed each other's company and have been friends ever since.
Yeah, well, because for anyone, I mean, I'm sure most people that are closely following this whole thing of you being Green Lantern are already aware, but Ray Fisher is the reason that you got the gig, where he was the one who recommended you to Zack, which I think is really, I think it's sweet, you know, of people helping each other out. And like, because I think there's a perception, I mean, it might at least be partially true, that it's a very competitive industry. So it's just really nice when you hear those stories of people kind of uplifting each other and being like, yeah, this is my friend. He's awesome. You should hire him. Check him out, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like you have to have something. And this, I guess this goes across the board with just about any industry. You have to have some kind of a connection. The thing you mentioned about the award shows and people networking and things like that, it's like, okay, if you have drinks with someone and you go, oh, I like you, I'm sure I would like working with you. And then you get a job. Well, of course, I'm not in those circles quite yet because I've been here for 5 years doing my thing, but I'm not just focused on film and television because I do other things. So I'm teaching over here, I'm auditioning when I can, and still holding the friends that I have, one of them coming up as a superstar and being a superhero, which is awesome. But he knows what I can do, and he knows me as a person, and knows what I stand for. And when he knew that Zack wanted to do this thing, he said, I know a person who fits that, exactly what you want to do and why you want to do it. I talked to Zack. We had maybe 4 or 5 phone calls, and he said, yes. I went and I shot the thing knowing that, oh, there's a possibility that it won't be in the movie. But once we finished shooting the scene, he said, I'm keeping this in the movie. I want this in the movie. I was like, great. I might be a superhero. This is crazy. And then they cut it. Oh, well.
You still, I mean, this is just my opinion, but you still count as a superhero, you know? You put on the funny gray pajamas. Like,
yes, I did.
That we've now all seen on Twitter or whatever social media platform you use. Like, if you're following any of these ongoings, you've definitely seen Wayne T. Carr in gray pajamas.
Yeah, they're super comfortable too.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's the thing is, you know, some people have stories about really uncomfortable superhero costumes, and you just put on some pajamas and like, where's my camera?
Really jealous of Ray, you know, having those long shoots. You just all day long in this constricted thing, and Ray is just chilling in some PJs. Yeah, they must have been really jealous because it was super comfortable.
Did you have to get fitted for them, or is that just a generic, like, okay. Because I wasn't sure if it was a thing of Zack just has those at his house. He's like, I think this will fit you.
No, they have to be fitted for you because they're like underwear, like straight up. Like they fit, like they just hug your body, you know? And so, yeah, I had to be fitted.
Yeah. Because I know it's almost this element of mystique of Zack, you know, shooting this in secret and doing it at his house. And, you know, so I'm kind of like, well, were you able to go get fitted? Who's fitting you? Where are you getting fitted? You know?
Well, the as far as the fitting is concerned, it was like basically online. And so I did everything myself with my wife and I, and sent it in. So it was like, no, I didn't go anywhere. Nobody came to me. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, I'm glad that it fit and it all worked out for you in a way. I mean, because even if well, I don't know. It's difficult. It's, you know, you can only speculate about how it would have gone. But like if the scene had ended up in the movie, I mean, I'm sure it would have been a big like, oh my gosh, Green Lantern is in the movie, and you know, he's a popular character. But also, I think there's a different energy that's now behind you because people feel like, well, this person, you know, there's injustice done here, and we don't like that. So then, if anything, there's like even more. There's a different type of a push behind you now of that little hashtag that was going. I think I tweeted it as well of like hashtag release the Green Lantern scene or whatever it was. Yeah. So
I mean,
I get to see it.
It definitely changes. It changes the story, and I think the fans who are really into the story, they get that, you know. And it sucks that was cut, because we understand what that means in the, you know, I shouldn't say we, the grand fans understand what that means. It's a different story when you have Martian Manhunter coming, saying that information, as opposed to Green Lantern, who's been doing what Green Lantern has been doing, to come in and go, hold up, things aren't over, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I saw kind of a mix of motivations where different people felt strongly about it for different reasons. Of some people where they're going, oh, I love DC Comics, I love Green Lantern, I want to see Green Lantern. Some people, you know, they just want Zack to be able to do whatever Zack wants to do. Right. And then also there were some people where they're going, well, growing up, this was my first Black superhero. So like, I feel robbed now that you're depriving me of seeing in live action my superhero that I can like see myself in. So, you know, and like, of course, like I'm not Black, but I know.
No, but our BIPOC community understands that representation matters, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you grow up and you see superheroes or you see television and it's completely whitewashed, and then you get someone who looks like you, or not even who looks like you, who just part of your BIPOC community, it's like, oh, there's a person who's different, just like I'm different. And then you take that out and it just kind of like makes things a little, Now, of course, we got Zack's version, which had a lot more diversity in it, which was great, but still not complete, where the sucky part comes in, because, you know, John Stewart was my first Black superhero also that I had any kind of affiliation with. I was always a Batman person, Batman. I don't know. I just gravitated towards Batman, but Green Lantern was my first Black superhero. Mm-hmm. And I got to him.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because since it's a release that's direct to HBO Max, it's a little different than, you know, if it had been a couple years ago where things go out on DVD, then I would have said, well, at least put it on the DVD. Like, let us see the scene on the DVD. But since it's not, like, I don't even know what's happening with the DVD industry anymore. I hope it doesn't go away, because I do think that physical media matters. But it's a little, you know, I'm getting on a tangent here. I don't know if you don't want to go here, we can leave. But like, I'm actually really irritated by the way, because everything is digital, and the people who own the movies or the shows or whatever, that they're just constantly going back and just changing things. Like, they just change, like if anything goes viral of like, oh, you have a continuity error or whatever, like, oh, you messed up a shot or something, and then they just change it. Like, I'll give you an example, and that nobody cares about this except for me, I think, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So Ocean's 11, not the one from the 1960s, the one from 2001. There is a very famous mistake in the movie where Brad Pitt's character is always eating. Like every time you see him, he's eating something. And there's a scene where he's eating shrimp, and it changes from him holding shrimp in a glass to shrimp on a plate. Yeah. And it's like a really funny, quirky mistake. Yeah. But now when I forget where I watched it, if it was on HBO Max or if it was on a different streaming platform, I don't remember. But they've changed it where those shots, they've cropped it in so you can't see what he's holding. And I'm so upset. Like, excuse me, that was a charming mistake. I want to see it. Like, let me see the cracks on the edge of the painting. You know what I mean? Like, it's real.
I love that. I love those things. I never catch them in the moment. I'm not that person. I know people who are just like, "Oh, you see the boom?" I was like, "What are you talking about? I didn't see anything. What are you talking about?" They see everything. They get, "Oh, you see that person? They had a different shirt on. Did you see that?" No, I didn't see it. I have to go back and look at it. But I hate that they do that too. It kind of takes away from the charm. Oh well.
Yeah, because it's like it's not ruining the movie. Like Ocean's 11 is still from 2001 is still a really fun. Like it doesn't ruin. Release the shrimp cut. Like, are you kidding me?
Start the hashtag. Do it. I dare you.
I mean, I have way too many campaigns of me like just trying to do things that nobody cares about that I need to not like just be that embarrassing on the internet, because I do that enough as it is. Of just it's just always me yelling about something that nobody else is yelling about. I'm like, you should care about this too, and nobody cares. Like
somebody does. If you care about it, somebody else does as well.
Because you can Google it of Ocean's 11, Brad Pitt shrimp, and people have already discovered that it's a thing. That's probably why they changed it, because you know their PR team or whoever was like, "Hey, people are making jokes on the internet about our film that we own. There's a situation with some shrimp and."
Yep. Absolutely.
Leave the shrimp alone. Like I like it. I like that it's, because here's the thing. Most people watching it don't notice it and they don't care. It's only weirdos like us who just look too closely at the thing that we'll see it and we'll talk about it. But like, if anything, it gives you more publicity. Like, why are you leave it alone? Of all the problems you have in your industry right now, you're editing out shrimp glasses and shrimp plates. It bothers me more than it probably should.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm. That franchise is interesting though, because it was like you had the one from the 60s and then it got remade. And like, I don't even know how many people that got into those newer films have even seen the one from the 60s. But like, you haven't?
Nope.
Even now you haven't?
Nope. Haven't seen the ones from 6. No.
You know, it's interesting. There's this phenomenon I've noticed where certain films from certain decades that it's like long enough ago, but they haven't super permeated like the cultural zeitgeist or whatever, that get remade. I feel like they were darker in the older decades, because they did that with Ocean's 11 where they kind of made it more polished and glossy and kind of fun. But the original Ocean's 11, it doesn't end well. Like, I don't mean it like it's a bad quality ending, but I mean, do you want me to tell you? I don't know if you want me to tell you.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So in the end, I mean, it's been a while, so I might be a little fuzzy on the details, but the TLDR being that, so they do the robbery, and then they're like trying to hide the money, but then because of where they hid it, the money gets destroyed. So the end is just all of the Rat Pack just kind of walking together as the credits roll, and they're just kind of like, you know, which is, but it's powerful, you know. It's like you could probably do some analysis of that, of, you know, what is the takeaway of, you know, you have this greed, but then it's just as quickly taken away from you, you know, of not that I feel bad for casinos, like what, like of all the industries for me to feel sad that, oh no, you got robbed, like no. But yeah, so that's interesting, because obviously in the Ocean's 11, the one that more people are familiar with, the glossy one, I love that that's how I'm referring to it. But they get the money and they get to carry on for more films and just have fun getting into heists together. So it's a different ending. And I don't know if I prefer one over the other, because I feel like the whole artistic presentation is so different because they're separated by so many decades that they do feel like their own thing. But it's the same thing with Stepford Wives. I despise that they remade Stepford Wives. I think Stepford Wives is one of the most underrated, like, horror social commentary films from, I forget what year it came out, but that had a completely different tone and ending to they made it into a comedy.
I know.
What's next? Are we going to fast forward 40 years and they're going to remake Jordan Peele's Get Out and turn it into a lighthearted, cute comedy? Like, that
is on the internet now. Everybody knows it. That's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. I mean, that's just it all. I guess it depends on kind of like what people are into. Like, I think a lot of filmmakers now, people who are creating stories, think or believe that most of us want to take care of the bad guy, get the bad guy, let the people we like and love, succeed and get what they want. And so everything kind of has this bend towards this happy ending, wrap up type thing, right? So that it's a nice little bow. You go after this thing, you don't like casinos, you don't like the person who runs the casinos, you like these people who are going to take this thing, great. They succeed. You walk out happy. It's just, they feel like that's what we want.
I mean, it just depends on the story, I guess. But the original Stepford Wives is so good. And probably, I was going to say, why isn't it available, like, more easily available on streaming platforms or whatever? Sexism, obviously. That's why. Because, like, it's so slept on. It's one of the most underrated. It's such a powerful piece of cinema because it's really critiquing. It's a really good horror film, but not like in a gross way. Because I don't really like the overly gory, bloody type of. It's just not my thing. No disrespect, but
yeah, no, okay. But you seem to have a wide variety of film that you're interested in. Like, the genres kind of span. You seem to be interested in so many different things, which is awesome.
Oh.
Have you always been?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think because when I was little, a lot of the films that were just around the house that I would watch were older.
Yeah.
So I always feel like I don't consider myself an expert on film because there's so many films. There's so many films that I haven't seen, that I would never go around acting like, oh, well, I know all the trivia. Like, I definitely don't. But yeah, I do like a little bit of.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you go from like, the superhero world to musicals, to horror, to, you know what I mean? Like, you're literally I can keep going. And not only horror, but different decades of it, like it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting, watching the Stepford Wives, the original one now, and it's so smart and it's got so much commentary in it kind of about just this anxiety of living life as a woman and feeling like everyone around you is starting to push you towards this idea of being like a domestic housewife. And it's not what you want. And you think you have your allies, but then your girlfriends are also transforming into these little docile domestic housewives. And the horror of that. What's interesting is I was reading about that film, and apparently there were a lot of feminist groups back in, I forget when did it come out, like the 70s or something. And they were really, well, not all of them, but there were some feminist groups that were really antagonistic towards the film because they thought that it was promoting that women should be like that. But that's not at all what the film is about. The film is not saying that, like, oh, all women should be like this. It's like, isn't it terrifying how society and how the men that you're dating and your friends and their husbands, because apparently only straight people exist in the Stepford Wives universe, all these people are trying to push you to be this really antiquated idea of womanhood. And I don't know.
I get where that point of view comes from, because anytime you bring attention to something, even if your piece is going, no, this is not cool, this is actually like a horror film, you're still bringing attention to it. You're still putting it out there, which is why, anyway. Any kind of like publicity for anything that's not good is publicity, and people might go, I never thought about that. Oh, that's kind of cool, or whatever, because you put it out there.
So I'm going to bring something up, and I'm debating whether or not I'll keep it in because it's an idea that I've had for a video that I want to make for my channel. So I don't necessarily want to spoil it because I don't know if anyone else has caught on to this. So I might clip this part out and then put it in later whenever I get around to making this video. When I'm making videos, it really just depends on what the video is, because there are some videos that I just make that are very quick because YouTube works in a certain way where if you want your channel to stay alive and continue to be recommended to new people, you have to post often enough. And it's physically impossible for me to do something that's super, super high production and in-depth every couple of days. The more in-depth I go, the longer it's going to take to make. So I try to have the mix of the quicker things, but then,
And I think you should, by the way, as a person who is, especially because of all of the Justice League stuff, I'm getting into the world of the YouTubers a little bit and trying to see and doing my research on what you all do, and informing your fans and the people who are fans of the world. The short videos are awesome to have plugged in there. There are times when I want to listen to you talk to Ray for 3 hours, and I'm just like, this is great. And other times,
did you watch that?
Yes, I did. I did watch that. Come on now. It's Ray, number one, and it's your new fan, Wayne T. Carr, wanting to hear what you have to say. And one of the things that I love about you that I knew right from the jump, and there was somebody else you interviewed that I was just like, Lady Genevieve, oh my gosh, you do your research, girl. And I love that. And I just love the fact that you'll say it. And I forget who you were talking to. You had your little drink and you were like, I'm going to ask this question. You asked the question and you went back and you just sipped on your straw. And you knew, nobody has ever asked you this question ever. And I was like, she knows she's good. She knows she's done her, you do your research, and I respect it.
I mean, listen, there's a certain point where you kind of have to come to a realization that if you don't have certain privileges in life, if you don't hype yourself up, nobody else is going to do it for you. Or the wrong people will, and you shouldn't be reliant on their validation anyway. So it's just, I think I'm so picky about certain things. Just growing, before I had ever done any interviews of anyone, I didn't have a YouTube channel yet. We're talking, I was a little adolescent and I was just a fan of stuff. So when you're a fan of someone, you're going and you're looking up, because YouTube was starting to pick up. So you're looking up everything you can find about whatever, an actor or whomever it is. And you want to know everything that you can find about them. So you're watching interviews and it gets repetitive really, really fast. So it's come full circle now where I actually don't watch a lot of interviews about people because, if I have to do research, then I'll go look for stuff.
Yeah.
Because obviously I knew I was going to talk to you. So I went and looked up some of your videos of you talking about doing theater and things like that. Because I was going, okay, well, I need to have some sense of where to go. But for the most part, I'm going, if you can't just talk to people, it's just not going to be worth watching. And so many old school styles of interviews, they're so manufactured and they're so just, let's talk about these talking points. And that's why the talk show hosts have their cards. Because obviously, if you're a talk show host, you're not even doing your own research. You've got people who do that for you, whether it's, producers, interns, agents who say, these are what you can ask my client about these things or whatever. And it's just so inorganic. And I think the fact that YouTube and people just making their own channels, podcasts or whatever, it's really exposing how artificial all of that stuff is to the point of it not being entertaining. And there's only a few talk show hosts that I think genuinely come across well, coincidentally or not coincidentally. Drew Barrymore, Kelly Clarkson. If they have a short little segment with someone, it's usually not short enough, or it's usually not long enough for it to be anything that's all that interesting to watch, but the vibe will be good because they're genuine people and that comes across. But yeah, no, it's so when it comes to doing interviews, whether it's Ray or anybody else, I mean, you have to be able to just carry a conversation and just let it go where it goes.
Not everybody's able to do that. You know, like
then you should do something else and just get out of my way.
There you go. Look at you. I made my point. Sip on my point. You might be right. I mean, but there's a time and place for the bullet points, right? There's a time and place for like the boom, boom, boom. Let me ask you these 3 questions, and I'm going to allow you to get back on the red carpet and go answer that same question 10 more times.
I hate red carpets.
Yeah.
Red carpet interviews. I'm sorry. I need to specify, because if you show me a video of Pedro Pascal posing for photographers and he's just smiling and having fun, I will enjoy myself. But, you know, interviews on the red carpet, 90% are awful.
If you turn this off, I can tell you something about him. That, you know, anyway.
I'll put it on pause. I'll ask you after.
I gotta go anyway, but yeah, we'll talk.
Okay. Yeah. Well, God, was there anything else that I wanted to get into? I mean, obviously, you're welcome back anytime. You know, whenever the Macbeth promo is starting up, you know, obviously come back, or any project you're working on, really. Oh, actually, I did want to ask you, because you mentioned, I don't remember if this was when we were recording or when we were not over on Lightcast, but you mentioned that you're doing some writing.
Yes.
Or is that something that you've always done, or are you getting more into it now, or do you want to share a bit about that? You don't have to say too much about what you're writing if you don't want to, but just
there's not too much to say. I wrote a one-man show back in the day based on Tupac Shakur, and took the show to London and got to perform it at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I fell in love with that process. But I learned very quickly that copywriting is a thing, right? So if you do that, they're going to take your money. Now, granted, I was in school when I did that, and so I didn't get into any deep trouble. But all the money that I made in Scotland went to Tupac Shakur's estate, right? But from that, I was asked to do some writing, because they were like, "Oh, I love this show, this one-person show," and so I started writing for fun here and there. And it wasn't until COVID hit that I just had the time to sit down and just start writing some stuff. So I started writing some stuff, and I was very fortunate to have people who I can hand it off to who said, "Oh, cool, let me look at that." Francis McDormand was like, "Let me give that to my my manager or my writing partner." And so all of a sudden I'm writing things, and it's being passed around to people. And so yeah, I'm working on the TV show. Hopefully something will come of it.
Cool. And then you can come back and share all of your insight into that. Before I stop recording, though, I do want to give you a note, because I'm sure that, you know, as an actor, it's always like the more things you know, the better you can approach different things or whatever. Like, as much as I've enjoyed your web series that you were on.
Yeah.
There was a point where you were pantomiming doing grooming, even though there were no products on your hands, which, like, I don't know what you're doing to your face without, like, I don't want to scroll past my backdrop to show you how many skincare products are on my desk, but, like, there was a point where you were pantomiming putting on eye cream, even though there was nothing on your hands, because I have, like, a 12-step skincare routine. I know what product looks like on your hands. And you were using your middle finger.
Yeah.
And you were like, swipe, don't do that. Don't do that. And especially because, you know, being an actor, so much of it is about, you know, you want to try to maintain your appearance, and you don't want to needlessly age yourself in a way. And the skin around your eye is super thin. It's super delicate. It's always about being gentle. So when you're applying eye cream, you want to only use either your ring finger or your pinky, and you just tap it on like this.
Uh-huh. All right. Yeah, I have okay, so it's funny that you say that, because I have no idea what I did during that time. And by the way, as far as like products, there was product on it, but because we were shooting this during COVID time, like we couldn't be together. We were like trying to wrap up and finish a scene like last spring or whenever it was wintertime. Anyway, they were like, Wayne, okay, so can you just like set your camera up and we'll do this thing? And what ended up in the web series was like take number 12. And I wasn't going to keep putting stuff on my finger. So I just kind of like
get a face mist and just spritz yourself so you look nice and glowy and you look like you've been doing your routine.
Yeah, this is why I need help when it comes like you can't put me in like self-production and be like, okay, Wayne, do this thing. And but no, I did the best I could to try to like clear stuff off to make it look a certain way. Yeah, I'm not, but thank you for that. Cause that's good for me, not just for that film situation, but in real life, which is what I'm taking it as, you know. I'm not good when it comes to skincare, and that thing that I was doing, whatever, I don't even know what finger I was using, but I'm sure I was just like,
yeah, you were going like this, and I'm like, I mean, first of all, I don't think you were actually touching your face, which I was like, okay, again, you're doing like the fake influencer, like, oh, I love this thing that I'm trying to get you to buy because the brand paid me, but they're not even actually using it on their face. So you were doing that type of pantomiming, and the camera's way too close to your face for you to get away with that. But yeah, I get really needlessly riled up about skincare. Really? Like,
why are you so into skincare?
Because well, not just Hollywood, the world is incredibly sexist to women aging. So I do feel societal pressure to try to maintain my appearance. I'm also now on camera more often because I make videos for YouTube, YouTube. And also I just like skincare. It's just fun. Yeah. But also your skin is the largest organ of your body, and people are super reckless with their skin. Like, if you're not putting SPF on every day, then what are you even doing with your life? And it doesn't matter if you have dark skin, because there's sometimes a misconception that some people who have darker skin, they think, oh, but like I have more melanin, I'm fine. I don't need SPF because I'm not going to burn if you put me outside for 5 seconds, like my pasty white friend over here. But it's still, you don't want to be dealing with unprotected sun exposure, because I think it's something like, I forget where I read it. It was like, if you have a year of just daily unprotected sun exposure, that's the equivalent of like a day of roasting your skin at the beach. So it's how many years are you alive? So you get to a certain age and you have all these signs of aging. And listen, if they want to age you up for a job, let the makeup department do that. Don't let it be because you didn't know how to put your moisturizer on. Like,
so speaking of that, like I probably like moisturizer and things like that. That's literally over the last couple of years. Like I just never did that type of thing. And I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but I grew up with that statement. Like, oh, you're black, you got, melanin or whatever, you're going to be fine in the sun. Now, I've been sunburned. I know how that feels. It sucks, but it doesn't happen as quickly or as often as it does with my white friends, right? Mm-hmm. They go out into the sun, we go out the same amount. They're like, it's hot, I'm burning, my skin's sensitive. And I'm like, no, I'm fine, everything's okay. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, because like the UV rays, I'm trying to remember all the trivia that I've read or heard at different points in my life, but it's, it can really affect even just how your skin looks. Yeah. Like it's going to lose the elasticity, your pores are going to look larger, just over time. Like, listen, we all get older, eventually you're not going to look like how you looked when you were 12, 20, 30, however old, like you're going to get older. And then it's not that that's a bad thing, but you don't need to like go down in in a thing of flames. You can age gracefully, Absolutely. Like you.
So I'm going to come to you for skin care help. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to shoot you an email and go, okay, so check this out. Here are the products that I'm using. What do you think? And then I'll give you my number and we can shoot a little like video so I can show you that I'm using the right fingers and how to, we'll work on that.
Yeah, it works for me. Like, well, I'll stop recording and then I'll show you how many products I have on my